Okay, I'm going to go through these first couple of slides really quickly because if you're needing help on the more basic ideas of area and perimeter, I want you to access the other video in the CC1 content area labeled perimeter and area. So, just really quickly, if we're looking at perimeter is just the shape of the total length of the boundary that encloses an interior region. So, looking at this shape here, we can see that there is the outside region, which encloses an inside region that I'm shading now. And basically the perimeter is just adding up all of the different sides here. So we have 5 plus 8 plus 4 plus 6 is 23. So perimeter is just adding up the outside area. Okay, moving right along, what is area? Well, area is the measure of the square units within a shape. So instead of looking at the outside of the shape like we did with perimeter, we look at the inside of the shape, and more specifically, those square units that are needed to cover that inside region. Okay, so if we're looking at this shape right here, we can simply count up the squares 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we get that there's 11 square units. Okay, again, if this isn't clear and I'm going too quickly, be sure to access the video in the CC1 videos labeled area and perimeter. So, area of a rectangle, again, same concept, but we're looking at a rectangle, which is actually a really nice shape because basically your width side, 3 meters here, is going to be the same as the opposite side because it's a rectangle, and that is a definition of a rectangle. Same thing here. The 5 side, which is the length, would be the same up here. So this would be a 5, and this would be a 3. Okay? But to find area, different ways we can think about area are, you might have heard of, base times height, or length times width. Both of those are the exact same thing. So if we're looking at the shapes we have up here, you'll notice we have a base of 5 and a height of 3. So to find the area, we multiply those two numbers together. 3 times 5 equals 15 meters squared. Why is it square meters? Because if we look at this image, you'll notice that if we count up all of our squares, we actually get 15, which is the same thing. So we have 15 square meters. Moving right along, the area of a parallelogram. So let's read through this one together because this is where it gets a little bit more confusing. The area of a parallelogram is equal, so area is equal to the area of a rectangle with the same base and height. So let's read that again. The area of a parallelogram is equal to the area of a rectangle with the same base and height. If the base of the parallelogram is length b and the height is length h, then the area of the parallelogram is a equals b times h, or area equals base times height. How do we know this? Because if we were to draw a parallelogram, the height here and the base here, similar to the picture we have here. Think about if we were just to move this piece, this line right here, if we were just to shift it up and shift this up, we would have a shape that now looks like this. You'll notice this shape here is a rectangle. And like the last picture, we know that if this is a rectangle, then this side is equal to this side, and this side is equal to this side. Therefore, we can do area equals base times height. Area of a triangle is a little bit different. Let's read this one. So the area of a triangle is half, so half, the area of the parallelogram with the same base and height. If the base of the triangle is length b and the height is length h, then the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So we have here 1/2 base times height, and that equals the area of our triangle. Okay, so that's the formula, but how can we understand this with something we already know? Let's start with let's back that up. Let's start with a rectangle here. We have a rectangle. If I were to draw a line through that rectangle, we would make two triangles, one here and one here. But the area of my rectangle, we already know, is base times height. So let's give those a name. Let's call this 4. Let's call this 6. Base times height is 24 squared units, whatever we decide our units to be. But now let's make it a triangle. If I'm just trying to find the area of one triangle here, what is my area going to be? Well, you'll notice this triangle here is 1/2 the entire area of the rectangle. Hence the reason why we get 1/2 times the original base times the original height of a rectangle. So that should clear up a little bit of why the area of a triangle is half the area of a rectangle. Lastly, we have the area of a trapezoid. And that's found by averaging the two bases and multiplying by the height. So you'll notice here we have a base and a height. So we're going to see how we can work with the trapezoid to make it easy for us to understand. They've given us the formula here. So we know area equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. Now, how can we understand this formula without just memorizing it? What do you think? Let's try. Let's erase this. Let's see what we got here. So let's take this shape right here and let's redraw it. Right here we have a trapezoid with a height. We have a base 2. We have a base 1. What I want us to do is I want us to flip, if you will, this trapezoid up right here. So we're going to mirror this length here, so the exact same length here. We're going to mirror this length here. So we know that this one here is probably a tad bit longer, just as it looks the same. And then we're going to take the length of the side here, and we're going to do the same here. Now we have a new shape. Now we have a parallelogram, just like we talked about earlier. And if we go back to the other slide and we say, okay, what is the area of a parallelogram? It's basically the same thing as an area of a rectangle, base times height, because it's just slanted a little bit. So let's go back to here, parallelogram. So now we have base 2, which we've reflected here, so we can write this as base 2. We also have base 1 here, which we've reflected here, so we can write this as a base 1. So now we have our height, so our area is our height times our entire base, which we know is base 1 plus base 2. And this would be the area of the entire figure, but how much of that figure do we actually want? We just want 1/2 of it, so then we multiply this by 1/2. And if you notice, this is the same thing as this. So that one was a little bit difficult. I suggest you watch the video again and pause just to process as you go through if you didn't quite understand it. But go ahead and like this video if you understood it, and comment if you didn't. And remember, you got that math swag. See you next time.